The first thing I noticed was how carefully she placed her hand on his arm. Not casual, not friendly, possessive. We were standing in my mother's dining room. The smell of roasted turkey thick in the air, my relatives orbiting us with polite smiles, my wife's fingers curled into the fabric of his jacket like she was anchoring herself, like she belonged there. With him, I watched the room tilt just slightly. No one else saw it. They were too busy trying to understand the introduction she'd just made. "Everyone," she said, voice bright, rehearsed. "This is Daniel. My boyfriend." A nervous laugh rippled through the table. Someone thought it was a joke. My sister actually clapped once. I didn't laugh. I stared at her hand. The ring I bought her still sat on her finger. She hadn't even bothered to take it off. Gold catching the chandelier light, a tiny sun orbiting a dead planet. Daniel smiled at me, extended his hand. He had no idea. Or maybe he did. Maybe that was the thrill. Standing in my house, breathing my air, tasting the food I paid for, wearing my wife like a trophy. I shook his hand. His palm was warm. Mine was ice. Inside my chest, something old and animal began pacing in circles. Not rage, rage is loud. This was quieter, cleaner. A blade being drawn slowly from its sheath. I smiled. "Perfect timing," I said, standing. My chair scraped the floor like a scream I refused to make. "Everyone!" "Meet my lawyer." Silence bloomed. And in that silence, I felt my heartbeat steady. Everything was finally where it belonged. I'd known for 3 weeks. Not from a message, not from lipstick or perfume, something subtler. Something worse. Indifference. She stopped arguing with me. That was the first sign. Marriage is friction, heat, movement. But she'd gone cold, polite, distant in a way that felt curated. Like she was already gone and was being kind enough to leave a placeholder behind. Her phone started sleeping face down. She showered before bed. Every night. Even when she claimed she was exhausted, and she smiled at nothing. That was the one that kept me awake, watching her in the dark as her screen lit her face in soft blue. That secret smile. Tender, intimate. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. I didn't confront her. Confrontation is for people who want answers. I wanted truth. Truth requires patience. I started cataloging her absences. The late meetings. The sudden gym membership she never mentioned. Receipts in her purse from restaurants we'd never been to together. 2 glasses of wine. Always 2. I built a timeline in my head. A quiet architecture of betrayal. Each detail slotted into place with terrifying elegance. Still, I told myself there could be explanations. There are always explanations. Humans are experts at manufacturing mercy for the people they love. But love has a smell when it's dying, and our house reeked of it. I hired the investigator on a Tuesday. I didn't even hesitate. The number had been sitting in my contacts for years, a relic from a business dispute. I never thought I'd use it for my marriage. He didn't ask questions. Professionals rarely do. They just take notes and nod. The waiting was the hardest part. Every morning I kissed her goodbye. Every night I asked about her day. I listened to her lies with a softness that surprised even me. I made dinner. We watched television. We touched in all the ways couples do when they're pretending nothing is broken. Inside, I was mapping her destruction with surgical precision. Photos arrived first. A cafe, her hand across the table, his thumb brushing her wrist. The intimacy was microscopic, but unmistakable. Bodies leaning toward each other like gravity had chosen them specifically. Then the hotel footage. Time-stamped. Undeniable. I stared at the still image for a long time. Not at her face, at the ease of her posture. The comfort. The way she walked beside him like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd been practicing a life without me. Something inside me settled. The chaos stopped. There's a moment when pain becomes data. When emotion drains out and leaves behind pure information. I printed the photos. Filed them. Contacted a lawyer. Signed papers with a steady hand. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was grieving. Because I was planning. Thanksgiving was approaching. Family. Witnesses. A stage. I decided I wanted the truth to breathe in public. When she walked in with him on her arm, I almost admired her courage. Or her stupidity. Maybe they're the same thing from a distance. She didn't look at me at first. She performed the introduction like an actress hitting her mark. Bright smile. Casual tone, as if infidelity were a quirky anecdote. When our eyes finally met, I saw it. Fear. A flicker. Quick, sharp. She'd expected a scene. Tears. A man begging to be chosen. Instead, I reached into my jacket and placed the envelope on the table. Her name was printed on the front. Clean, formal. She opened it with trembling fingers. Papers slid out like a confession she'd written in her sleep. I watched her read. Watched the blood leave her face in slow retreat. "No," she whispered. Not to me. To reality. Daniel stepped back. Instinct. Animals know when a structure is collapsing. "I've known," I said quietly. The room leaned in. "For weeks." She looked up. Eyes wet, mouth open, searching for language that no longer existed. I'd taken it from her. "You brought him," I continued, voice steady. "To my family. To my table." I gestured to the turkey. The plates. The architecture of tradition she'd tried to poison. So I thought. Efficiency was appropriate. My lawyer cleared his throat softly beside me. A human punctuation mark. Her hands shook as she held the papers. The ring caught the light again. A tiny sun going out. "This isn't fair," she said. Fair. The word hung there, obscene. I almost laughed. "I gave you silence," I told her. "I gave you time. You spent both with him." Daniel tried to speak. I turned my head just enough to look at him. He stopped. "Some men understand hierarchy without needing it explained." She sank into a chair like her bones had dissolved. The performance was over. No audience left to charm, only truth. And it was heavier than she expected. Dinner resumed eventually. People adapt to horror with remarkable speed. Plates filled. Forks scraped. Conversations restarted in fragile threads. She sat at the end of the table, papers folded in her lap, staring at nothing. Daniel was gone, evaporated, a coward's exit. I felt light, not happy. Happiness is childish. This was cleaner. A room after a fire. Everything burned away except the structure. I looked at her once more. Tried to summon grief, love, nostalgia. Nothing came. The woman I married had been replaced by a stranger weeks ago. Tonight I simply acknowledged the corpse. I stood, excused myself, and walked to the door. No one stopped me. The cold air outside tasted honest. Behind me, the house hummed with the sound of a life I no longer belonged to. And for the first time in months, my mind was quiet. I didn't lose her. I removed her.